Hey everybody, Francis here from What a Hell of a Way to Die. So I'm kind of trying to start doing a little bit more streaming, get back out onto YouTube and Switch or Twitch. Jesus Christ! As you can see, I'm 37 years old, so I need to keep up with all the cool kids these days. I do have a TikTok that I do not update very often, and I try to think about it more often. It's just you got to think about it. You got to think to do it. So I'm starting to think more about doing more streaming. So I didn't want to play video games because video games are very relaxing. It's when I sit and stare at a TV or stare at my Switch or whatever. Like it's my time to mentally unwind. I don't want to have to be on for that. It's like one of the few things that I haven't really tried to capitalize on. So video gaming's out. So I'm just gonna do the thing where I talk into a camera. But I'm not going to just say whatever my nonsense bullshit is that you hear on the podcast and stuff. Well, maybe a little bit of the nonsense bullshit. But what I also wanted to do is I've been introduced to a lot of very hardcore leftist zines from the Vietnam era, specifically a lot of them that are military related. Because as you know, Vietnam War, everybody was being drafted. Not everybody, but a lot of people were being drafted. So dissent in the military back then was much higher, as much, I don't want to say seditious because fuck the Vietnam War. Anybody who didn't want to go fight it shouldn't have had to go fight it. But it was much more open for kind of talk of revolution, talk of leftist feelings, and don't let yourself be torn away, my brothers, to war overseas. So Up Against the Bulkhead was one of those zines. It originated around a movement called Stop Our Ships. Now I'm going to let me pull up this real quick, because so Stop Our Ships was not just it was kind of all up and down the California coast, because in San Diego is where a lot of if you're ever in San Diego, that's where the shipyard, the naval shipyards, I don't remember which one it is, but the naval shipyards that let you go out, the fucking aircraft carriers. It's like one of the places that you can do an aircraft. I'm from fucking Missouri. We don't see aircraft carriers here. So if you want to see one, you got to go to San Diego. There's always one or two hanging out there while other ones are rotated out. So it's a big naval yard. And of course, on California, going to Vietnam, same ocean. So when Marines and sailors and everything were being drafted and being sent out, they were doing it out of there. So a lot of the zines and a lot of the stuff really a lot of the counterculture of the late 60s, early 70s, along with the anti-military was really happening then. So there's a lot of really wild zines, and I'm not just gonna do Up Against the Bulkhead. There's another one called AWOL Press. There's one that I'm looking for is like the Concerned Officers Legion or something, where it's just like lieutenants and captains being like, we don't think this war is such a great idea, and we're gonna write it down. Like, if anybody has a cush job in a war, it's an officer. Okay, I shouldn't say cush, but it pays a lot better and you get better things. And then also there's a local St. Louis leftist zine that was big during the time. So I'm gonna just kind of like, this is how I'm gonna start. Is I just wanted to read like a section of Up Against the Bulkhead, and kind of want to show it to you. But so let's see. Up Against the Bulkhead. We're Wikipediaing it for you too. The San Francisco underground GI newspaper Up Against the Bulkhead and its staff played an important role in supporting the SOS movement, particularly in the dissident sailors of the Coral Sea. Founded in 1970, by late 1971, it could be found everywhere GIs congregated in the San Francisco Bay Area. And sailors knew where to go when they wanted some counterculture help and friendship. So it seemed like everybody kind of knew that Up Against the Bulkhead is what you had. So it says, let's see, sailors were a colorful lot, veritable hippies in uniform, more than eager not only to investigate ways to oppose war, but also sample the offerings of counterculture hedonism. Look, so they don't want to go to war and they do want to fucking do drugs. They're teenagers. Of course they do. So I'm going to bring this up real quick. Boom. So this is going to be what we're reading from Armed Farces Day, and if you zoom in, that's a really a good Nixonite kind of caricature. And these were multiple pages long, and I'll link where I'm finding these, and where you guys can go if you want to read them yourself or kind of flick through them. But this is taken directly from Armed Farces Day. I believe this is page 2 of either the first or the second of the Up Against the Bulkheads. Isolation is the name of the game. It is the isolation of GIs from each other, which the GI movement is successfully overcoming. Think about this. Isn't basic training just 3 months of separating you from every human value you believe in? They force you to compete against yourself, your buddies, and your friends in other units. Not only does the brass use jealousy, greed, pride, and fear to force us to compete against our brothers, they're never above using racism to divide us. What the brass calls race riots usually means the result of planned provocation by authorities. Lying white officers telling their men that the blacks are going to beat their asses, and lying black officers telling their men that the whites are going to beat their asses, and the lying black officers telling their men that the whites are going to jump them in their sleep. This sick racist tactic proves just how desperate the oppressors of this country are. Another familiar isolating tactic is the rotating work shift, making a man work from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. one week and 3 p.m. to 12. Not only keeps that man tired and jumpy, but it keeps him from making friends with the other brothers on his shift. I don't know how much black officers were riling up the black enlisted soldiers. I'm pretty sure that the white soldiers were perfectly fine doing racism on their own. I don't think they needed provocation. Some of them were just real racist. The brass is desperately afraid of GIs getting together and building trust, because strong resistance and solidarity can grow from this togetherness. Although spontaneous events are sure to occur in San Fransisco Bay bases, the focus of this action in our area is Fort Ord Training Center for 40,000 brothers enslaved to the Army and the National Guard. Why Ord? Bay Area military installations, as we all know, are a choice liberty town like Berkeley and San Francisco. Assume you can get off base, there's always some place to go. So isolation from the subversive influence of the civilian world is almost impossible. Fort Ord, on the other hand, is very isolated. Anyone with a weekend pass heads either north for this area or south to Los Angeles. Because Ord is most isolated, civilians are most determined to break down that isolation. So that's actually a really interesting point. I hadn't actually read this whole thing. I wanted to be surprised. I figured it's a anti-war leftist. I figured there wasn't going to accidentally be Nazi stuff in here. So fingers crossed, though, still. But Fort Ord no longer exists, and is actually like I think it's not a super fun site, but it's one of those places where like they shot so many bullets and they fucked up the ground so much that like it's just uninhabitable. They have cleaning operations there, but it's not very big because it's just a big chunk of mountains and nothing in California. Like it's just a big hunk of land which nobody's going to use, and they're like, oh fuck it, we just don't go there anymore, I guess. So Fort Ord, and it wasn't closed that long ago. It was before, and when I say that long ago, I mean like maybe only about 30 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. I believe it was closed before I joined in 2000, but only just because I've met people who trained at Fort Ord when I first joined the military. So it's not that far gone. But yeah, Fort Ord is also, because it was an infantry training base, it's in the middle of nowhere because they're not just shooting rifles. Obviously, they're probably shooting recoilless rifles or mortars. It was an infantry training base, so they shot all kinds of big stuff, and you need big wide open areas full of nothing to do that, so you don't bother everybody. Okay, if the government is afraid of the GI movement, they're twice as afraid of the GI movement linking up with progressive movements on the outside. Dig that the American invasion of Cambodia, the U.S. war on Laos, the new bombings of North Vietnam, and the killing of 4 Kent State University students by the Ohio Guard has provoked both GIs and civilians to defy the government. ROTC buildings have been burned down across the country. Between 1,000 and 1,500 draft cards were turned in at a single rally in Berkeley. There have been 3 different reports in as many days of GIs refusing to obey orders to invade Cambodia. And there are rumors of general strike by rank-and-file members of the labor movement. Wouldn't you just love to have a labor movement of the 70s? I mean, I know it had its problems, but yeesh today. Uh, the whole country is enraged. The big question is, can the different movements and organizations get together to fight the source of their oppression, or will they each continue to fight separately? If we do continue to fight separately, we may soon be fighting each other like a Kent. There's no alternative. If we are to survive and win, we have to do it together. So the big solidarities of the armed forces, and they did this. This whole thing ran for quite a few for more than a year, and a lot of the ones that I found have run more than a year too. Now that one was a little bit better of a put together zine. The AWOL press looked like it was done on like a World War II era typewriter and like mimeographed and stapled in the corner and just like handed out, which was absolutely legit at the time. Now they were mostly around Fort Riley, Kansas. So all of the big military bases that were doing a lot of infantry training back then, and a lot of that's not really done. I guess infantry training now, if you're doing war stuff, it's Fort Irwin, JRTC, which is Fort Polk. I went through Fort Dix in Jersey, so. But I mean, we don't have a draft, so we have an unpopular war that nobody's being forced to go to. So it's like unpopular, but like, if you show up there, it's kind of it's kind of your own fault. Like, nobody forced you into that. So, a lot of the subversiveness of the bygone eras just aren't there because we're not forcing our 18-year-olds to go die in rice paddies on the other side of the planet. So I'm gonna do more of these. These are a lot of fun. I hope that they're not going to be real samey, but that's why I'm going to kind of jump around away from military and into like the St. Louis ones. If you know of any any zines from like 50 or 60 years ago that you think would be interesting, send them my way. Hit me up on Twitter at ArmyStrang, and we'll take a look at them. Because I really like going through all of these. It's wild to see. The St. Louis leftist zine had a whole thing dedicated to Huey P. Newton. So, I imagine I'm going to learn a lot too as I read these because this is very. I don't like reading theory. I don't like burying my head into a tome of Marx or something like that, but I really do like reading stuff like this and reading how they wrote 50 years ago and how, you just kind of wonder where these people are now. So if you know the editors of Up Against the Bulkhead, hit me up because I want to talk to them. Other than that, we'll talk to you next time.